The essential seven is solving marketing problems and getting the right answer at the right time. I welcome anybody who has a marketing kind of an assignment to use this as a framework.
Hey, we're back. Another episode of More Than Marketing with me. I'm your host, Arsha Mirsha. Today, joined by the infamous Paul Field.
Infamous indeed.
Infamous indeed. Real excited to have Paul here because Paul, first off, he was in the Marines, so we're going to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
First and foremost.
Thank you for the thank you.
Of course. A lot of respect there. And also a lot of respect. This is a madman. He was literally hanging out with Don Draper, the character, on Madison Avenue. What was it, 285, Matt?
285 indeed.
285 Madison Avenue in the late 60s, 70s. So we literally have a madman of the agency world with us today on the podcast. Real excited to have you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
It's really cool. And Paul's also been consulting us here at Web Mechanics, and he's got a lot of good stuff to add, a lot of stuff we can learn from, your years of experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for that as well. And today, what do we, first off, I'd love if you can kind of give a little bit more about your background.
Okay.
Yeah, to start off.
Well, Sham mentioned that I was in the Marines. I found myself a year out of college commanding 50 Marines in Vietnam. And when that was over, I found myself at Young and Rubicam, 285 Madison Avenue, being yelled at by the most junior copywriters and art directors. And
how the times have changed.
Quite a transition. But anyway, I spent a career in advertising, working for a couple of the best agencies in America and New York. And then I ended up in Baltimore as a senior vice president of a large agency for 17 years. And after that, I started consulting with agencies and with their clients and branding. I have refocused the brands of some 23 companies in the last few years and work with 20 or 30 agencies. So I have some experience in marketing.
Seen a thing or two.
I've seen a thing or two.
About the marketing and advertising world, agency, and but always agency side, right? You haven't been on a client side.
Early on, after I started at Young and Rubicam, I thought I'd like to see what the client side was like. So I went to work for Avon, which at the time was at 30 Rock, and I had some exciting experiences on the 43rd floor of 38 Rock.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so you had that end as well.
And I decided I liked the agency side better.
What do you like about the agency?
Well, I like the pace of it. I like working right next to and hands-on with creative people. I am creative enough that I can work with creative people and help them monitor the creative process, but I'm not creative myself. and so I found it a good home.
Yeah, and my understanding is, Paul, you're on the account side of the agency. So a lot of relationship building, a lot of strategic thinking, understanding the client's business, their problem, what they're trying to achieve, and then kind of helping put the strategy, which is the frame for which the creatives come and propose a solution.
Right.
That right?
Right.
Right. And then so in your time, in agency world, you've created what you call the Essential Seven.
Yes.
Okay, and we want to talk about the Essential Seven, Paul's a framework. What would you call the Essential Seven? I'm calling it a framework for fill in the blank, or
a framework for approaching the marketing assignment, the marketing need in an efficient way, and making sure all of the steps are in place or in sequence. I'll tell you the story, if I may.
Please.
How I got to it.
Yeah, that's definitely.
As a young account person at Y&R, I would be in meetings with senior people leading the meeting, and I'd listen to the questions and answers from the clients. I thought, wow, that's really terrific. Wow, that's smart. How did they know how to ask that question at that moment?
Right.
And nobody trained anybody in that. And in self-defense, I figured out a process for myself that I've written articles about, and it's called the Essential Seven.
Okay. Yeah. So in your, young in your career, you're like, whoa, what are how are these experienced people like asking the right question, the right time, which would uncover, I suppose, would uncover, an answer or a strategy that
Right.
would then move the assignment forward, so to
Right.
speak. Yeah.
And so the Essential Seven, I have used and trained people in on the agency side, but it is solving marketing problems and getting the right answer at the right time. And client side marketing teams use it. I welcome anybody who has a marketing kind of an assignment to use this as a framework.
Yeah, I love it. So I want to reiterate that. So Paul here has been working in agencies. That's where his experience has been. But that doesn't mean this Essential Seven could work. If you're an agency, if you're working in an agency, or if you're working in house, at a company, then you can use this because it's still a marketing assignment.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're an agency or in house at a company. It's a marketing assignment. You have a team that you need to align and move forward.
That's right.
To accomplish a goal. So that's great. So now I want to jump into it because there's seven.
Okay.
There's 7 pieces. We might as well get after it, huh?
Well, the way I tell the story is there are 7 steps, and I can't remember 7 things. So it's divided into 2 parts.
Brilliant.
There's a tactical 3 and the strategic 4.
Nice. I like it. So where do you start then? Do you start at
Well,
the tactical 3 or
you start with
you
the
say
tactical
logistical
3.
3?
The tactical or the logistical 3.
All right.
So it starts with the kind of things that need to get squared away before you get into the guts of the assignment.
Sure.
So the first thing is, what are we doing?
What's the task?
What's the task? And the task could be, as Sham and I were talking about earlier, could be as simple as we've got the annual meeting coming up. We need a presentation for March 17th.
Right.
Or we need a TV spot on the air, or fairly simple, straightforward things.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be a step more strategic, like we need to generate more leads, or we need to generate more walk-in traffic.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to do that? Or it could be even more strategic. Our website seems to be out of date. I'm thinking we need to focus our website. Is that a creative thing or a rebranding thing? What is it?
Yeah,
So
rebranding.
whatever the task is, that's the first step, defining the task.
And could the task also be something like, hey, our reputation, we need to change our reputation, the perceived the perception of our brand.
That's right.
That could be a task also.
Sure.
So as big as that, or as little as, because there's a lot of ways to approach that, or as little as, or as small as a task of like, hey, I need a campaign on Google Ads
Right.
for this particular keyword because I know it's what people are typing. So that's the task.
So
What's the task?
what is it that we have gathered together to
Right.
tackle this project?
Why are we in this room
Why
together?
are we in this room? Why are we here?
Yeah, why are we here?
And then the second step is perhaps obviously timing. When do we need this?
Yeah.
Because I started in advertising, I'm very focused that the media has as a deadline that if you miss it, you can be out millions of dollars paying the media for the time you didn't use. So you
Right.
have to be clear, what is the deadline?
Yeah.
When does this really have to be done? And as Sham knows, an agency team, if you're using an agency, can do a lot of things quickly. And there are some things, however, that if you're going to do a whole major assignment, it requires a lot of time.
Yeah.
So
And coordination.
So you CMOs and marketing managers out there, you need to be clear on your deadline and is it doable in the whole frame that you're thinking about, or do we need to cut it in various ways?
Yeah, well said. No, that makes a lot of sense. They have to be clear. We all have to be clear about our deadlines on the task at large, but then also break it down into each chunk, right?
That's
So
right.
that's project planning, project management, if you will. Also, in timing is sometimes nice to know if there is a hard deadline or if it's kind of like a we would like it by
That's
type
right.
thing. Sometimes like you alluded to the conference. Okay, we have a conference coming up, so now we need these materials, these brochures, website, whatever, interactive this or whatever, because that conference is on a date. That conference is not going to move.
That's right.
So that's why that's that deadline.
And many times, if you've got that kind of a conference and one of the elements is a new website, we all have experience where you can show a couple of frames from the design of the website. It doesn't have to really be finished.
It doesn't have to
for
be
the
developed
conference.
and working, right?
But there can be experiences. One of the folks here came back from a client meeting yesterday, and this client, I won't name them, wants a whole new rebranding, new website, new logo, and associated materials in a month.
Probably not going to happen.
Probably not going to happen.
just thinking out loud here. Probably not going to happen
We will figure out how to get them what they absolutely need
by that time.
by that time.
Exactly. So number one, what's the task? What are we here to do?
Right.
Number two, when do we need to do it by?
Right.
What's the timing? Is funding running out, or is there a conference, or is it we need to generate more leads in general? Okay, got it. Right. What's the timing? And then, so now we know the task. We know the timing. What do we need to know next? And
Well, the third logistical element is budget, and this is really important. And if you're a CMO or marketing manager and you're dealing with an agency, this always feels a little tricky on the client side, I think, because they're afraid. The clients always say to agencies, "We don't have a budget yet." Well, they do have a budget,
right.
But I have always thought they're thinking, if I name the figure, the agency inevitably will work all the way to that figure.
Right.
Well, there's some truth to that.
There is.
But the more important part of it is there has to be an understanding of what the budget requirement is, how far this could really go, as you're discussing the parameters of this. Agencies can do things small or big, but if there is a misunderstanding or no understanding of the budget, there is a high likelihood mistakes will be made, time will be wasted, creative morale will fall down, and this will all be detrimental to the ultimate client. So there needs to be an understanding of what the budget is. And listen, there will be a contract, there will be estimates provided by the agency, so you can give the agency the number and then watch carefully as the estimates and the estimates revisions come in for you to approve.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I agree. It's always a challenging discussion is, hey, what is the budget for this? Oh, we don't have a budget. We want you to tell us what the budget is. Like, well, okay, we can do that, but we also want to know that if we come back and say, hey, this task, if you really want to knock it out of the park and really accomplish the goal, if we come back with, in the millions, are you gonna be receptive to that, or do we need to stay in the hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands? Where do we need to be? Give us a ballpark,
Right.
But similarly, I think also within the company, if you're a marketing manager, CMO, whatever, VP, if you have a team, they're going to need a budget too. I mean, if they're buying ads, right, or if they are going to print the collateral, they need to know, they need to know what the framework. They need to know the ballpark. They need
Right.
to, so it goes. It works in-house, it works in agency. We need to know what the budget is. And I think most of the time you know what the budget is. I mean, it's the exception to the rule that, the CEO or CFO is going to say, you have unlimited budget.
Right.
Get it done.
I think once in a while, some clients have said, we don't know what this is going to cost. If you'll give us a budget, we'll come in and we'll present it to management.
Right.
And that's certainly believable and understandable. And there can be the appropriate discussion with them and the agency. And here is the budget, we could do this. And here's a budget, we could do this. And you guys decide what you need.
I think that options is good there, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's smart to actually ask for options and say, hey, look, if you come over, I don't know, just picking a number. If you go over 100,000, it's never going to happen. But don't just go up to 100,000. Show me what the 100,000 is, but also show me what a 50,000 would look like, and tell me will I accomplish the task? Will I accomplish the goal if I choose the 50,000? Because one thing we like to do is say, okay, client comes to us and says, here's the task, here's the timing, and here's the budget, and we'll just tell them like we think it's impossible to accomplish that, so we're not the right people for the job. And if someone else tells you it is possible, we would ask you to raise an eyebrow at that and have them show you. So
good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It's also happened the other way too, where it's wow, you have a lot of money for something that is should be pretty easy. So it goes both ways. Logistical 3, timing. I'm sorry. Task first. What is task? Why are we here? 2 is timing. When do we need it, and why? And number 3, budget.
Pretty good.
What are
Pretty
we working
good.
with? I have some. I'm cheating. / we just talked about it, so I should remember it. Should we move on?
Okay.
Strategic 4. So
So
now,
the strategic 4. So now we're getting into it.
yes.
So one of the considerations, at least for an agency side, and similarly on the client side, I call a company or insight, which is a reminder to me what's really going on, not marketing issues, what's really going on that will affect this project. For example, does the CEO hate the color blue? Well, let's not waste time and money showing him anything with the color blue.
Right.
Or have we fired our staff, salespeople, and we're going to manufacturers reps, which is a whole different situation.
Right.
And it deeply affects many of the things we might do. So what's really going on?
Mm-hmm. So it's digging deeper into like the why the task is the task.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So another example might be, we have a PR nightmare. For example, I don't know. We just had to let go. E. coli was found in our food, and so now we have a PR nightmare, and now the task is to reverse that PR. So what's really going on? What's the why behind? Am I accurate on this? This is your
exactly
framework. I want to make sure I'm not.
What's going on that affects this project?
Brilliant. Great. Okay, so that's number 1 on the strategic 4.
Then the second item, some of this was affected by Neil Borden in the Harvard Business School's famous marketing mix in 1964. So product, what is it that we're marketing? What is it that we're selling? And why should they do it? Now, it's easy to say, like Russell Reeves in 1961 came up with the unique selling proposition, the USP. What is the unique reason to buy this product? M&Ms, they melt in your mouth, not in your hand. I said this yesterday, and somebody said, it melted in my hand.
It also melts in my hand.
Well, too bad. So what's the reason? And as we're thinking about it, I require folks to give me 3 supporting reasons why the USP is true. But it can be very difficult when you have what's really a parity product and a parity brand in reality to think of a meaningful USP. And when I was giving a lecture the other day, somebody asked me, how do you go about coming up with a unique USP in that situation? And here's the answer to that, an answer. In 1981, Jack Trout and Al Reese wrote a book called Positioning. I urge you to read it if you haven't, because it makes the point we need to find the niche between our competitors and look for something unique that we can own in the middle. And may I take a second and give an example?
Yes, of course, please.
Some years ago, the BWI airport folks asked us to put together a campaign. They had a problem. They were getting traffic from folks that lived in the Baltimore area taking flights, and it wasn't growing. And with people not coming to the airport, they couldn't get more carriers in to attract more people, and it was a problem. So we as a team thought about it, and we looked at the whole market. We thought the problem might be bigger than what I just said. So we looked at the whole region. And Reagan National Airport is not much fun to go through. And Dulles, if you live on this side of DC, is a long way to go to.
Indeed.
And when we did some testing at BWI, we discovered BWI really is very pleasant and easy. So we came up with a solution. We positioned BWI not as the Baltimore airport, since we'll get all those folks anyway, but as the easy come, easy go regional airport. And this went from a minor little account to a multi-million-dollar advertising account. We did marketing in major feeder cities like Chicago and Atlanta. If you're coming to this region, take the easy come, easy go airport.
Yes.
Don't go through that crazy stuff.
Yes.
And it worked great. BWI became the fastest growing airport in the United States as a result of this refocus. So by positioning it against the competition, we figured out a unique approach.
That was the value. The value of BWI is easy come, easy go.
Right.
You know, simple, no traffic. Right.
And the line worked because it's true.
Yeah, it is true. No, this is. I would completely agree. Knowing, I mean, that's where I refuse to go out of Dulles and Reagan. You know, I'll pay more. I'll literally pay, you know, 100 or 200 more just to fly out of BWI. So,
and let
so
me add,
it was true.
Let me add one other thing while we're talking
Sure.
about product. You need to understand, as the marketing side, the client side folks usually do, the whole value chain, how the product moves from the manufacturer down to where it sells. There may be some interesting bumps along the way that provide opportunities.
There's
So
some
knowing-
unique things along the way.
That's right.
Right.
So knowing the value chain is important.
Yeah, and you know, there's stories out there about how even if your product isn't different, even if your value chain or your supply chain, let's call it in this case, is the same as your competitor may not be talking about the supply chain. There was one story, I forget from what book, but it was like, hey, this fabric is the same as my competitor, but you know, we get it from the same place in the Middle East, right? It's a very nice fabric, but the competitor wasn't talking about how it was, you know, how the fabric was produced. So the marketing campaign focused on that. Hey, this fabric, you know, they didn't come out and say it's the same as our competitor. They said it's produced by the, you know, find the well-fed sheeps in whatever the thing was, the differentiator was. And while it was the same, it was just positioned.
That's right.
And that made all the difference. That made
That's
them
right.
grow in the competition.
And this is a problem we find all the time, every day, when in reality, what your marketing is exactly the same as the competition. One example I like to think about is Geico, who sees the position, give us 15 minutes and save 15% or more in car insurance. I am sure that all other car insurance companies could make the same claim.
Right.
But Geico sees that position.
They own it.
They own it. They nail it, and they present it very well.
That's right. And now, like, the other ones can't own it, so they can tiptoe around it.
And they do.
And they do. I saw a Farmers commercial last night. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. So they're going with the expertise angle as opposed to the save you money angle. So product and value chain. What is the USP, the unique selling proposition that we have? How are we positioning our product? That's the number 2 on the strategic 4. And could you take us to number 3?
Sure. The vitally important is a target market. Who is the target market? And understanding the target market and what makes them tick is crucial to all of us in marketing.
Yeah.
And I have a simple shorthand that I developed as a mental checklist when I'm writing up a creative brief or a strategic direction to make sure that I have identified the target market. And it's my brand vision A, B, C when you're thinking about who is your target market. And the A stands for what is the target market's attitude about this product or service, and what would they like. B, their behavior, their shopping behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they go about shopping for this thing, and what do they do now? Maybe what would we like them to do if it is movable?
Mm-hmm.
C is characteristics. What do we know about them? Demographics, buying decision, psychographics. What are the factors that we know about them, and how can we get at them?
This I really like this ABC. I've told you this before, and here's why. When we learn to do personas, it doesn't go as deep as attitude and behavior necessarily. It typically will focus. The first thing you learn in persona development is the characteristics, the C to your ABC. You know, the firmographics, demographics. Is it male or female? What's their age? Where do they live? You know, those types of characteristics. Do they have a family or not? The behaviors, I love that because, you know, we need to understand how they buy and how they want to buy, how they should buy, so that we can insert ourselves in there properly. And then attitudes, I think that's the most important one because that's where your value proposition comes into play. That's when you can, decide what kind of angle you're going to take. Is this a fear? Is this a greed? Is this a,
That's right.
So you got to understand the attitude as well as the behavior, as well as the characteristics before you
Right.
can know what to.
And let me make another point that you and I have talked about a couple of times before. It's vital to understand if you're in a B2C or a B2B situation. I made a colossal mistake early in my career from which I've learned from. It's a long story, which I'll spare you now. But I thought my client was essentially in a B2C situation, and we were doing trade ads to sell the product to the manufacturer who bought that particular product. And it wasn't working well enough. And we thought about it, and we figured it out in the nick of time. It wasn't a push situation. We created a pull situation because we came to understand the whole chain in a B2B situation. Folks, there is usually, in a B2B situation, it's usually more complicated than a B2C situation, and you must understand the steps. In this particular case, there were manufacturers' reps, there were dealers who had choices of various, our product or the competitor's product.
Competition.
So you have to understand that. In this case, we created a pull campaign to get consumers to go into dealers and ask for that product, which made the manufacturer happy, which got him to buy our ingredient product.
Right, because the end consumer would come in to the dealer and say, "Hey, I want this product, but it has to be made with this."
That's right.
Component.
So we didn't really care if they bought it, but in a pull situation, it made the manufacturer
say, "We need
thrilled.
more of you." Right, exactly. Yeah, which made your client thrilled. Paul, before we hit the last one, let me take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Okay, Paul, so we got 3 of the strategic 4 down.
We do.
We have started out with what's the company, but when you say company, that's the why behind the task. Why are we doing this? Number 2 is the product, the unique selling proposition about the product and the value chain. The positioning, the differentiator could go there. How are we positioning this thing? And then number 3 was the target market, their attitude, the ABCs in the target market, their attitude, their behaviors, and the characteristics, demographic, firmographic, and such. Now on to number 4.
Okay. Wrapping it up, number 4 is really important. It's competition. And I have been surprised to find in my career that a lot of folks are not paying much attention to their competition beyond lip service.
Mhm.
And I have found that if I come into a client's office with information of what their primary competition or more distant competition is up to, more often than not, they're surprised, they're thrilled, because they haven't been paying that close
Right.
attention. So pay attention to what your competition is up to. I want to make two other points.
Bring it.
The competition, understanding what the competition is up to, is critical from the positioning point
Yes.
that I made earlier. You have to know what they're doing so you can figure out where the niche is that you can move forward.
Yes.
And the third point on this is I read just recently that when you're thinking about getting the message out, according to Forbes in 2017, there were between 4,000 and 10,000 messages, advertising messages a day, smashing into the head of the average consumer.
Sure.
4,000 to 10,000.
That's wild.
Incredible.
Wow.
So, when you're thinking about that, you have to think about what can we do as marketers, as agency folks, to break through that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have an answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you're thinking about what you're up to, the communication that you send out into that maelstrom, think about it and judge it when your agency comes to you or your marketing team comes to you, and here is what we think we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you look at it and you say to yourself, it has to satisfy two C's, ABC. And the two C's are clear and compelling.
Yeah.
Is the message in the communication perfectly clear?
Mm-hmm.
15%, say
15% more. Yeah.
15% or more in car insurance. Is the message as clear as the Geico example?
Right.
And then is it presented in a compelling way? Is the communication creatively attention-getting enough
Right.
that it breaks through the clutter of the 4,000 to 10,000 messages, and the ultimate consumer will get it and pay attention? I think this is critical. CNC, good
Yeah.
way to think about it.
What about I thought it was clear and concise, but compelling makes a lot more sense. I think concise also, if you think about, if you want to add a third to your framework, you're more than welcome to. It's because, 4,000 to 10,000, messages a day, marketing or advertising messages a day. I mean, maybe you want to be concise, to the point, compelling, clear, concise, and compelling.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily work on every single medium, but especially in when you only have a limited amount of space. A TV ad, 30 seconds, 15 seconds. Display ad, it's only certain dimensions. So it's got to. I think by definition, it has to be concise. You can't. You just have, depending on your medium, you don't have more than so much room. So I like this framework a lot. It's obvious that a lot of experience went into crafting it. The reason I like it the most is, I think you know this about web mechanics. We have an academy that we teach the community digital marketing and advertising. And one of the things that we don't have like a course for is how to create strategy, or how to kind of frame the problem or the account in such a way that all the stakeholders or all the different departments will know what the task is, or what we're trying to accomplish. And that's what this Essential 7 really does. This is an alignment tool to essentially create a brief.
Yes.
And then that brief can be used across all the different departments. Like for us, we have marketing, we have creative, we have technical services departments. They all should have eyes on this brief, or on the answers to this Essential 7. If you're within a company, same thing.
Boy, I'm glad to hear you say that. That's exactly right. That's the point to this.
That's the whole point. same thing. If you're the marketing manager inside of a company, you use this framework. You can now share that with your team. You can share it with your boss, and you can share it with the CEO, right?
Right.
And say, hey, look, this is my understanding of the task, the timing, the budget. This is my understanding of the actual business problem of why we're doing this task. My understanding of our unique selling proposition. I maybe this is my understanding of it, or here's what I came up with after looking at the competition, and knowing that we want to be in a blue ocean, or knowing that it makes sense to kind of juxtaposition or position ourselves different than the competition, so we don't just sound the same, right? It's not compelling if it's the same as what your competition is saying, right? Right. So, so I really like this as a kind of process or tool to align all the stakeholders, and
Well, thank you.
team.
I found it very useful. I've used it for some years and taught it for some years. And as I said at the beginning, I created this when I walked in by myself into client directional meetings to know what to do. But as time went on, I found it exactly as Sham said, helpful in writing a creative brief, critical in writing a creative brief,
Right.
useful in writing advertising or marketing plans, useful for many things, for understanding our process, and as a checklist to make sure we've covered our bases.
So, Paul, would you be so kind as to allow me to offer this to the listenership?
I'd be glad to. This is
What a good man. Serves his country, and then comes and creates frameworks and shares it for free.
there you go. I'm glad to have you do that. How can people get a hold of it?
I'm gonna put a link in the description here, or I think what we can do is, how about this? If you're listening, then go and Google Web Mechanics Essential 7. You can type out 7 or put the number 7. Web Mechanics Essential 7, or Paul Field. You can put some Paul Field in there too. Paul Field Web Mechanics Essential 7. You Google that, will be the #1 result, and there will
Great.
be download link there. Or otherwise, if you're on YouTube, it'll be in the description. Wherever else this is, if there's a description or wherever, that's where we'll put it.
Sounds great.
Free
And this
of
has been a
charge,
lot
and
of fun talking about it.
it's my pleasure. Maybe you have a lot more to give, to talk about. You got a lot of cool perspectives. I know, because we've been talking for the last several weeks. So maybe we have you come back on. We do something else.
One of the things that might be interesting to talk about, up to you some future time, is talking to marketing leaders about knowing when and how to refocus their brand.
Yeah, that sounds great. That'll be the next episode. How about that?
Okay,
Paul, thank you so much for your time in Essential 7. You're a good man.
my pleasure.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
All y'all out there, hopefully this was helpful. We talked about it. Maybe you were listening and writing it down. Maybe you're driving, you can't. Check out the description for a link to download the Essential 7 from Paul Field himself. Thank you. Subscribe, like, share this with whomever you think would be enjoy this content, and we'll see you next time.